Namaste and welcome to Daily News Simplified, the what, why and how of newspaper reading. Now we would be analyzing the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper of 19th of August 2019, and the news that would be covered today is given on the screen, and the timestamp for the same is given in the description and the comment section given below. And so now with this, let us start with the first article. Now we have taken this opinion-based editorial from the editorial page on page 10. Now the focus of this editorial is quite small. Now, as you already might be aware of, what recently happened is that the Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh recently announced that India's future commitment to our given principle of no first use as part of our nuclear doctrine depends on the future circumstances. Now, India's nuclear doctrine, like any other principle of national security, should be dynamic in nature and therefore should be capable of change to changes in international politics. And therefore, within that regard, India's commitment to the no first use of nuclear weapons should be dependent on how the future circumstances in geopolitics change. Now, within that regard, the two foundational pillars of India's nuclear doctrine are credible minimum deterrence and no first use policy. Now, in simplest of terms, no first use policy means that India will not be the first country to use nuclear weapons. But if any other country uses any form of weapons of mass destruction, such as nuclear weapons or chemical or biological weapons, then India will most likely to attack with nuclear weapons. And if India does retaliate with nuclear weapons, then it will do so at a massive scale or basically cause massive destruction to the enemy country that has used nuclear weapons. Now, according to the author, India's policy of no first use showcases India to be a responsible nuclear power, whereby India has shown that its nuclear weapons are only for defensive purposes and we will use it only when someone uses nuclear, chemical or biological weapons against India. Therefore, India's self-proclaimed restraint on the usage of nuclear weapons has formed the basis for our claim to membership to the nuclear supply groups and has been the basis to our acceptance of membership to the Missile Technology Control Regime, the Wisner Arrangement and the Australia Group. Now it is within that regard that the author has raised a concern. Now, according to the author, the recent statement of the Defence Minister makes the no first use policy of India as ambiguous or basically not clear within its concept. Whereby the author raises a particular question within this editorial as to what has actually changed in India's strategic outlook that requires a revision of the no first use policy, whereby according to the author, as to what changes within circumstances has to be there for India to change its no first use policy, whereby would terrorist activities be a cause and change in circumstances to use nuclear weapons, or China's incursion into Indian borders, especially in Ladakh and Arunachal Pradesh, be a cause and change in circumstances to the no first use policy, whereby according to the author, the Indian government needs to define as to what changes in circumstances be a cause for India to change its no first use policy, whereby this ambiguity within India's nuclear doctrine would not portray India as a responsible nuclear power. So now hopefully you've understood the main crux of this editorial. Now within that regard, let us wait and see on how the Government of India moves forward in updating India's nuclear doctrine. Now this editorial and the explanation given in this section should be seen from the perspective of GS Paper 3 within the section Security. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 13. Now what this article highlights is that Prime Minister Narendra Modi would be visiting the country of United Arab Emirates or UAE within this month of August. Now one of the important outcomes that is going to come out of this visit is that Prime Minister Narendra Modi will receive the highest civilian award of the United Arab Emirates, whereby this highest civilian award is known as the Order of Zayed. Now within this regard, let us understand the various awards that has been given to Prime Minister Narendra Modi from the perspective of your prelims examination, and in particular from the section Current Events of International Importance. Now the first award that you need to know of, that the highest honor which can be given in Palestine to a foreign leader is known as the Grand Collar, and this was given to Prime Minister Narendra Modi during his visit to Palestine in 2018. Now, the second prize that you need to know of is the Seoul Peace Prize, which is given out by South Korea. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was the first Indian to receive the Seoul Peace Prize, which was established after the 24th Olympic Games, which was held in South Korea in 1990. Apart from this, as we have already understood, the United Arab Emirates will bestow its highest decoration, which can be given to a foreign leader, which is known as the Zayed Medal, whereby this medal is being given to Prime Minister Narendra Modi for strengthening and improving the ties between India and the United Arab Emirates. The fourth award that you need to know of is that Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2018 was given the highest environmental honor within the United Nations, which is known as the UN Champions of the Earth Award, whereby this was given to Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the leadership category for initiating or founding the International Solar Alliance, and also for ensuring that India eliminates single-use plastic by 2022. The fifth award was the highest civilian order, which was given by Afghanistan, known as the Amir Amanullah Khan Award. And secondly, Saudi Arabia also gave Prime Minister Narendra Modi the King Abdul Aziz Sash in 2016, whereby both the award given out by Afghanistan and Saudi Arabia was in 2016. Now, the last award that you need to know of was the Order of St. Andrew the Apostle, which is the highest civilian award which is given out by the country Russia. Now, this award is being given to Prime Minister Narendra Modi for developing a special and privileged strategic partnership between India and Russia. Now, these are the 6 main awards that you need to remember with regards to your upcoming prelims examination of 2020 from the perspective of current events of international importance. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now, we have taken this opinion-based editorial from page 11. Now, what this editorial talks about is the Witness Protection Scheme, whereby according to this editorial, the central government is yet to make an act or a law with regards to a witness protection scheme. Now, with regards to this editorial, the first aspect that we're going to understand as to what was the Supreme Court verdict on the witness protection scheme, whereby we'll try to understand the various provisions of the draft witness protection scheme of 2018. And after that, we'll try to understand as to what this editorial talks about. Now, what had happened was that the Supreme Court in the Premchand case had directed respective state governments to implement the draft witness protection scheme of 2018, which was framed by the central government, whereby according to the Supreme Court, a witness protection scheme was necessary as it aims to protect such people who have witnessed a crime and thereby can give evidence in a court of law. Now, there are 2 main objectives of the draft witness protection scheme of 2018, whereby the first main objective of the scheme was to ensure that the investigation, prosecution, and the trial of criminal offences does not get hampered because the witnesses to the crime are intimidated or frightened by the criminal elements. Apart from this, the second objective of the scheme was to identify a series of measures that can be adopted and undertaken so as to safeguard the witness and their family members on being intimidated or being threatened by the various criminal elements, whereby the scheme intends to ensure that the lives, reputation, and property of various witnesses within criminal cases is protected. Now, there are various rights which have been provided to witnesses under this draft witness protection scheme, whereby the first main right provided to witnesses is that they have a right to give their evidence in an anonymous manner, which means that their identity will not be given out to the general public once they have provided evidence to the court itself. Apart from this, the police also has to ensure that the witness is protected from intimidation by criminal elements, and the police also has to ensure a police escort whenever the witness requires. So let's say there is a particular witness who might be located in Rohtak in Haryana, who has to go to the Punjab and Haryana High Court in Chandigarh to give evidence. Now, for this witness to go from Rohtak to Chandigarh, the police might have to provide an escort whereby they have to ensure that the witness is protected during this particular route. Apart from this, the witness also has the right to information on the status of the investigation and of the prosecution itself. Apart from this, a witness has a right to transportation and lodging arrangements which he can claim from his respective state government. Whereby again, if we take this example, if this particular person is coming to Chandigarh to act as a witness in the Punjab and Haryana High Court, then the Haryana government has to provide a safe lodging arrangement, meaning a safe place to stay for this particular person within the city of Chandigarh. Apart from this, a witness has a right to secure waiting place during a court proceeding. Apart from this, a witness would also get permission to use a video conference from the judge to record his statement. And lastly, in extreme cases, the relocation of a witness under a new identity to a new place can also be undertaken. Now, apart from this, an important aspect of this scheme is that there shall be a witness protection fund which would be operated by the Ministry or Department of Home Affairs in the respective state or union territory. Now, the various expenses for the implementation of this witness protection order, such as of lodging arrangements, right to transportation, police escort, and for various other features under this witness protection scheme. Now, these are the main points that you needed to understand about the Draft Witness Protection Scheme of 2018. Now, after this, let us understand the critique which has been highlighted in today's editorial. Now, as we have already understood, the Supreme Court gave its assent to the Witness Protection Scheme in 2018. Now, this Witness Protection Scheme was drafted by the central government in consultation with the Bureau of Police Research and Development and with the organization NALSA. However, the main problem highlighted by the author is that the central government and several other states are yet to act on this directive given by the Supreme Court with regards to the Witness Protection Scheme, whereby this scheme was meant to be a measure in force only till the central government formed its own law on witness protection. However, what is being seen is that the central government is yet to form a law with regards to witness protection. Now, within that regard, the author has highlighted various problems with regards to the witness protection scheme and has said that these problems which currently exist in the witness protection scheme should be dealt with and resolved when the particular law is formed by the central government on witness protection. Now, the first problem which has been highlighted by the author is that the objective of the scheme is to ensure the safety of the witness so that they are able to give the true account of the crime without any fear of violence or any form of reaction by the criminals. However, what is being seen is the implementation of this particular scheme is very poor on the ground. Whereby, according to the author, what was recently seen in the Unnao case or the Vyapam scam, or in several other cases across India, is that the witnesses are not being properly protected. Now, the second problem highlighted by the author is that the scheme provides for police protection. However, what has been seen is that the police themselves are the ones that threaten the witness, whereby there is no particular law on how this should be controlled. The third problem highlighted by the author is of the politician police and the criminal nexus, whereby what is being seen is that the criminals themselves are getting protection from the politicians and also by the police. Apart from this, even if the criminal is only being protected by the politician, there is an increased pressure on the police to work as per the directions of the political masters. Now, apart from this, what is also seen in India is that it is the witness that turns hostile within the case after considerable time has passed in the hearing of that particular case. Now, within that regard, the witness protection scheme does not take into account if the witness turns hostile later in the case. Another problem with the witness protection scheme is that it does not take into account if a witness belongs from one state but is involved in a case within another state. Now, after providing the various problems with regards to the witness protection scheme, the author has highlighted various steps also which can be undertaken so as to improve the witness protection scheme, which largely can be included within the law which might be brought out by the central government with regards to the protection of witnesses. Now, the first step highlighted by the author is that there should be a separation between the investigating authorities from their own law and order duties, whereby the team which is actually investigating the case should be different from the team which is giving protection to the witnesses. The second step highlighted by the author is already provided within the witness protection scheme, whereby the author said is that better facilities for video conferencing should be provided to witnesses, especially if they belong out of state. Now, it is actually seen that in several district courts across India, the opportunity for video conferencing is not provided. And even if they are provided, they are not secure. And within that context, better facilities for video conferencing has to be provided, especially in district courts across India. The third step highlighted by the author is that if a witness does turn hostile even after they have been provided protection, then it needs to be ensured that these particular witnesses are punished with the law of perjury. Now, these are the three main steps highlighted by the author which the central government can undertake once they bring out their own law with regards to witness protection. Now, this article and the explanation given in this section should be seen from the perspective of GS Paper 2 within the section Governance and within the subsection Government Policies and Interventions for Development in various sectors and issues arising out of their design and implementation. Whether the particular policy and intervention that this editorial highlights is with regards to witness protection. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 6. Now what this article highlights is that the Odisha Wetland Authority has approved the implementation of an integrated management plan for the Chilika Lake and also for the Ansupa Lake. Now the Chilika Lake is the largest brackish water lagoon in India, and similarly the Anuspa Lake is the largest freshwater lake within the state of Odisha. Now within that regard, what we need to understand from this article is about the Chilika Lake, and we'll try to understand it from the perspective of your prelims examination. Now Chilika Lake comprises of three different ecosystems which are marine, brackish and freshwater ecosystem. Wherein here the term brackish means slightly salty. Apart from this, Chilika Lake is also a shallow lagoon. Now, a lagoon is a body of water which is separated from a larger body of water such as the sea by a narrow strip. Now, the location of Chilika Lake is that it is located in the state of Odisha, and in particular the district of Puri, Khurda and Ganjam. Apart from this, Chilika Lake also has islands within it. But one of the main island is Nalaban Island, which is located here in the map. Now this Nalaban Island is notified as a bird sanctuary under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Now the in-source rivers of Chilika Lake is made up of roughly 52 rivers and small rivulets such as the Daya River. Now the Chilika Lake is the largest lagoon in India. Now, as you know, lagoon is a body of water which is separated from a larger body of water such as the sea by a narrow strip. And as you can see here, Chilika Lake is separated from the Bay of Bengal by a narrow strip as shown here in the map. Now apart from this, Chilika Lake is the largest wintering ground for migratory waterfowl in the Indian subcontinent. Now these migratory birds are also protected under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Now Chilika Lake is also a designated Ramsar site, which means Chilika Lake is a wetland of international importance. Now apart from this, Chilika Lake was also included in the Montreux record in 1993. Now the Montreux record is maintained as part of the Ramsar list, and in general terms it means those wetlands of international importance which are threatened. Chilika Lake was removed from the Montreux record in 2002 and became the first site in Asia due to the successful restoration done by the Chilika Development Authority. Now these are the main facts that you needed to know about Chilika Lake. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this editorial from the editorial page on page 10. Now as you already might be aware of, a new anti-TB drug known as petromanide was recently approved by the United States Food and Drug Administration, whereby it is also a part of the three-drug regimen which has also shown a 90% success rate in a clinical trial in South Africa. Now the main crux of this editorial is that efforts should be made so as to ensure that these new drugs which have been formed to fight TB are cost effective and are affordable, especially in developing countries. Now the news with regards to these new drugs which have been formed to fight TB was first covered in the Daily News Simplified video of 16th of August. And after that, it was also covered in the Daily News Simplified video of 18th of August. Now what we'll do in today's section is again revise the various facts about TB and the various facts with regards to the new drugs that have been formed to fight TB. And we'll revise both of these sections with the help from questions for practice. Now there are two questions for practice, and what you need to do is pause this video, solve both of these questions and wait for 5 seconds for the correct answer. Now if you take a look at statement number 1 of question number 1, TB is not caused by a virus, but it is caused by a bacteria. And TB currently is both curable and preventable. Therefore, statement number 1 would be wrong. Now, with regards to statement number 2, about one quarter or about one fourth of the world's population has latent TB, which means that people have been affected by the TB bacteria but are not yet ill with the disease. Now, individuals with latent TB cannot transmit the disease, and within that regard, statement number 2 would be correct. Now, with regards to statement number 3, TB is the leading cause of fatality or death for HIV positive individuals. Therefore, the correct answer to question number 1 would be B, 2 and 3. Now, with regards to statement number 1 of question number 2, the DOTS program actually has a high accuracy in diagnosing TB, whereby the Indian government has said that the DOTS program has an accuracy of almost 95%. Therefore, within that regard, statement number 1 would be wrong. Now, with regards to statement number 2, multi-drug resistant TB actually happens when TB bacteria is resistant to the two most effective anti-TB drugs, first being isoniazid and the second being rifampicin. Therefore, both of these drugs are not effective drugs against multi-drug resistant TB. And therefore, within that regard, statement number 2 would also be wrong. And the correct answer to question number 2 would be D, neither 1 nor 2. So hopefully with this, we're further revised with regards to TB. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now there are two more questions for your practice, and as you already understand, pause this video, solve both of these questions, and wait for 5 seconds for the correct answer. Now with regards to question number 3, the Zayed Medal has been given out by the United Arab Emirates, while the Amir Amanullah Khan Award has been given out by Afghanistan, while the Order of St. Andrew has actually been given out by Russia, while the King Abdul Aziz Sash is given out by Saudi Arabia. Therefore, the correct answer to question number 3 would be A, 2 only. Now, with regards to question number 4, the main principles of India's nuclear doctrine are minimum credible deterrence, whereby India is going to maintain a minimum number of nuclear weapons which it can ensure that deterrence or basically fear is maintained among rival countries or enemy countries so that they think twice before using nuclear weapons against India. As you already understand, no first use is a part of India's nuclear doctrine, while massive second strike retaliation is also a part of India's nuclear doctrine, whereby if any country does use nuclear weapons against India, then India will ensure a massive retaliation which may include nuclear weapons against that particular enemy country. Therefore, the correct answer to question number 4 would be D, 1, 2 and 3. And now with this, we come to an end in the analysis of today's newspaper. Now we move on to the question for today.